At that time, only the bhikkhu sangha existed.
Pada saat itu cuma ada sangga biku yang ada, belum ada sangga bikuni.
Even later, after the Buddha had established the bhikkhuni sangha, in the initial stages he made the ordination for the bhikkhunis from the bhikkhus alone. So the monks gave the ordinations for the nuns.
Jadi pada saat sangga bikuni belum ada, kalau kita lihat sejarahnya, bikuni itu yang tabis adalah sangga biku, bukan sangga bikuni.
And then later on, we hear the story about how the ordination in front of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis evolved.
Dan kemudian kita bisa mendengarnya bahwa berkembang bahwa sangga bikuni itu harus ditabiskan di depan sangga biku dan sangga bikuni.
And similarly, we hear how this stage of the sikhamana, the trainee, originally there wasn't any sikhamana, there wasn't any trainee, and later on it became established for various reasons.
Dan sebelumnya juga tidak pernah ada ini yang disebut sikhamana, orang yang harus melatih dirinya sebelum boleh jadi bikuni. Tapi sekarang kita ada peraturan seperti itu.
And yet, even though it's very obvious from many passages, not just one or two, but many passages in the Vinaya and in the suttas, that the dual ordination evolved later, the sikhamana ordination evolved later, and yet here in the Garudhammas it's referred to right at the beginning, supposedly, of the bhikkhuni sangha.
Dan kita menemukan banyak kejanggalan ini bukan cuma satu, banyak di Vinaya dan di Sutta, bahwa itu sebenarnya dikembangkannya nanti di masa-masa kemudian, bukan di masa yang sekarang. Cuma yang Maha Pajapati ini doang yang bikin passage-nya masalah.
And you have to understand that in the suttas and the Vinaya, they're not normally like this. They don't normally make this kind of mistake.
Dan dalam Sutta dan Vinaya biasanya tidak dibuat kesalahan seperti ini.
Usually there's a very strong degree of internal coherence and consistency.
Biasanya koheren itu apa ya? Keseragamannya itu, keselarasannya itu biasanya kuat.
And so in that context of the story of Maha Parinibbana, we find such an obvious problem.
Tapi di konteks yang Maha Pajapati tadi, problemnya, masalahnya itu kelihatan banget jelas.
Then that's not the only one. In fact, there's many similar kinds of problems.
Sebenarnya ada banyak katanya yang bermasalah seperti ini.
And so this is why there's actually very strong reasons from purely objective and text critical arguments to suppose that this story of Maha Parinibbana is a later development.
Jadi banyak temuan-temuan, bukan cuma satu doang, banyak, bahwa sebenarnya kasusnya Maha Pajapati ini adalah perkembangan yang dikembangkan selanjutnya, bukan dari awal-awal, bukan seperti ini.
Of course, that doesn't mean that the whole story was just invented at a later date.
Cuman bukan berarti bahwa cerita itu baru direkayasa pada tanggal-tanggal yang lebih
Usually with these things, you find things are not so much invented as that they're retold or adapted to different perspectives.
Jadi sebenarnya ini kita bukan menuduhnya sebagai direkayasa, tapi kemungkinan diceritakannya seperti ini.
So we can try to read it and reconstruct what that perspective was, what the original form might have been, but of course we always have to be humble because we can never really know exactly what the original purpose of it may have been.
Tapi kita bisa merekonstruksinya. Cuman pada waktu kita merekonstruksi, kita selalu harus menjadi orang yang rendah hati, karena kita tidak tahu pada saat kita rekonstruksi itu kejadian yang sebenarnya seperti apa.
Okay. So, if that's okay, we'll move on.
Bolehkah saya meneruskannya? Meneruskan ini.
Oh ya, sorry.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. All right, very good. Okay. So, I won't spend much time on this next part, but Ananda marvels at the earthquake that happened. He goes to the Buddha. He asks him, why is it that there are earthquakes, and the Buddha gives 8 causes for an earthquake.
Jadi Bante tidak akan membahasnya secara mendetail, cuman tadi di keterangan tadi Ananda itu justru sangat takjub ada gempa bumi, dan Buddha akan membabarkan 8 hal berkaitan dengan hal tersebut.
And I won't read through all the causes of an earthquake, but you can look them up if you want to later. But the last one of the causes of an earthquake is when the Buddha decides to relinquish the will to live.
Jadi ada 8 penyebab kalau ada terjadi gempa bumi, cuman Bante tidak menjelaskan semuanya, tapi yang terakhir adalah pada saat kalau seorang Buddha telah melepaskan keinginannya untuk hidup.
The Buddha then, interesting in the Pali text, it then goes on to teach another several groups of 8 things, none of which seem to have anything to do with the story at hand, and these things are not found in the Sanskrit and other versions. They seem to have just been included in the Pali version to give more lists of 8 things.
Jadi ini yang menarik adalah Buddha kemudian meneruskan dan memberikan ajaran dalam grup 8 yang tidak saling berkaitan, nggak tahu kenapa ada 8, dan ini tidak ditemukan dalam teks yang Sanskrit, hanya ditemukan di teks Pali.
So even though these groups of 8 are quite interesting in themselves, I won't go into them because they seem to be a bit irrelevant to the story.
Jadi walaupun ini menarik, tapi Bante tidak menjelaskannya secara detail karena sebenarnya irrelevant tuh nggak begitu penting terhadap cerita yang berlangsung sekarang.
Then finally, the Buddha takes up again the story of the request by Mara. He tells Ananda, there was a time when I dwelt at Uruvela on the bank of the Naranja river at the foot of the goatherd's banyan tree, shortly after my supreme enlightenment. And then Mara, the evil one, approached me saying, now, Bhante, let the Blessed One have his Parinibbana.
Jadi di sini Sang Bhagawa kemudian meneruskan ceritanya. Pada saat itu Bhante mengatakan kepada Ananda, ada satu waktu Ananda ketika saya tinggal di Uruvela di sisi daripada sungai Neranjara, di bawah pohon banyan itu Bodhi. Is it Bodhi tree? Banyan tree?
No, actually this is another tree. This is the Ajapala Nigroda tree.
Ini adalah salah satu pohon yang dimana pemelihara kambing ya. Pohon tersebut biasanya dikasih persembahan. Dan setelah mencapai penerangan sempurna, Mara mendekati Sang Bhagawa mengatakan pada saat itu bahwa inilah saat yang tepat bagi Sang Bhagawa untuk meninggal, biarkanlah Sang Bhagawa yang begitu bahagia meninggal, dan inilah saat yang tepat bagi Sang Bhagawa untuk parinibbana.
And so the Buddha then repeats the conversation that he'd had with Mara.
Dan Buddha mengulanginya lagi. I'm sorry, Bhante.
Yeah.
But just now, didn't you say that this wasn't found in the Pali text? It was only found in the Sanskrit text?
Okay, so this is found now in the Maha Parinibbana. It's referring back to that time of the Enlightenment. But there's another text which tells that story after the Enlightenment. That text is found in the beginning of the Vinaya. It tells after his Enlightenment the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Anattalakkana Sutta, and that whole series of events. And so this would fit in there, but it's not found there. It is found in the Sanskrit version of that text.
Jadi ini memang ada di dalam Maha Parinibbana Sutta. Namun kalau sutta-sutta yang membabarkan pada saat Buddha mencapai penerangan sempurna yang pertama, percakapan ini tidak ditemukan di sutta tersebut. Jadi percakapannya ditemukannya di Maha Parinibbana Sutta, di mana Buddha merefleksi pada saat beliau mencapai pencerahan sempurna, ada percakapan ini dengan Mara. Okay, so and then the Buddha finally says to Ananda that today at the Chapala shrine, the Tathagata has renounced his will to live on. Dan disinilah Sang Bhagawa mengatakan bahwa di tempat pemujaan Chapala, Sang Bhagawa telah meninggalkan keinginannya untuk tetap hidup.
And then Ananda said, may the Blessed One remain, O Lord. May the Blessed One remain, O Lord, throughout for the rest of the eon, for the welfare and happiness of the multitude, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, well-being and happiness of gods and men.
Dan pada saat mendengar kata-kata ini, Yang Mulia Ananda mengatakan kepada Sang Bhagawa, semoga Sang Bhagawa tetap menetap di sini, semoga Sang Bhagawa yang bahagia menetap dan selama sampai berakhirnya dunia demi kebahagiaan dan kesejahteraan dari banyak orang, dengan belas kasih atas dasar belas kasihan kepada seluruh dunia demi manfaat semua makhluk dan kebahagiaan para dewa dan manusia. Too late.
And the Buddha said, enough, Ananda. Do not ask the Tathagata, for the time is past, Ananda, for such a question.
Sang Bawa kemudian menjawab, cukup Ananda, jangan memaksa Sang Bawa karena waktunya telah lewat untuk membuat pernyataan seperti itu.
And a second and a third time, Ananda kept on pestering the Buddha, please stay for the happiness of the multitude, out of compassion for the world.
Nah, Ananda nih maksa-maksa Sang Bagawa terus sampai 2 kali, 3 kali supaya Sang Bagawa tetap tinggal di dunia ini.
Finally, the Buddha said, Ananda, do you have faith in the Buddha's enlightenment? And Ananda said, yes, I do. And the Buddha said, then how, Ananda, can you keep asking me even up to the 3rd time?
Kemudian Sang Bagawa mengatakan kepada Ananda, apakah Ananda kamu mempunyai keyakinan terhadap pencapaian sempurna dari Tata Gata? Kemudian Yang Mulia Ananda menjawab, tentu saja ya Sang Bagawa. Namun demikian Ananda, mengapa kamu tetap memaksa Tata Gata bahkan sampai ketiga kalinya?
So then Ananda said to him that the Buddha had previously taught him that anyone who develops the 4 Iddhipadas can remain to the end of the eon, and therefore the Buddha could, if he wanted, remain to the end of the eon.
Nah, kemudian Yang Mulia Ananda mengatakan karena Ananda pernah mendengar dari Sang Bagawa bahwa semua orang yang tadi telah mengembangkan 4 Iddhipada maka dapat terus hidup sampai akhir dari dunia.
And the Buddha said, did you believe that? He said, yes, Bhante, I did. And the Buddha said, well, Ananda, it's your fault. You failed. So, because you were unable to grasp this plain suggestion, the significant hint given by the Tathagata, you did not ask me to remain. If you'd done so, twice I would have said no, but the 3rd time I would have consented. Therefore, Ananda, it's your fault.
Dan Sang Bagawa menanya, apakah kamu percaya Ananda? Kemudian Ananda menjawab, ya Sang Bagawa. Dan oleh karena itu Ananda, ini adalah semua kesalahanmu karena kamu tidak menangkap pada saat saya memberikan sugesti ini kepadamu, betapa pentingnya pada saat itu Sang Bagawa telah ingin memberitahukan Ananda bahwa keinginan Tathagata untuk tetap tinggal di dunia ini. Dan jika Ananda pada saat itu kamu meminta kepada Tathagata 2 kali, Sang Bagawa akan tidak memenuhinya. Namun pada saat kamu memintanya untuk ketiga kali, Sang Bagawa akan memenuhinya. Oleh karena itu Ananda, kesalahan tersebut ada pada kamu karena kamu telah gagal.
Poor old Ananda. And the Buddha goes on at Rajagaha, at the Banyan Grove, at the Robber's Cliff, at the Sattapani Cave, at the Vihara mountain. By the way, at the Robber's Cliff is a place in Rajagaha. It doesn't mean it's a cliff that belongs to the robbers. It means the cliff where the robbers were thrown off. At the Sattapani Cave, at the Black Rock, at Isigili, at the Serpent's Pool in the cool forest, at the Tapoda Grove, at the Bamboo Grove in the Squirrel's Feeding Ground, Jivaka's Mango Grove, and at Small Nook in the Deer Park. I spoke to you in the same ways.
Jadi Sang Bagawa mengingatkan kepada Ananda di semua tempat yang tadi banyak banget. Sang Bagawa sudah mengingatkan kata-kata yang sama kepada Ananda.
And every time you just didn't get the hint.
Dan setiap kalinya si Ananda nggak dapat hint ini itu clue ya, udah kira-kira mau dikasih kisi-kisi tapi dia nggak nangkep juga.
Finally, Buddha said, but Ananda, haven't I taught you right from the beginning that all that is dear and beloved we must be separated from, there must be change, of that which is born, come into being, is conditioned and subject to decay. How can one say, may it not disappear? This cannot be.
Namun Ananda, bukankah saya telah mengajarkanmu bahkan dari sejak awal bahwa semua yang sangat Anda cintai pasti akan berubah, pasti akan terpisah, dan semua yang lahir maka akan terpecah, terpisah, dan decay itu busuk ya. Decay apa ya bahasa Indonesia ya? Membusuk. Jadi bagaimana kamu bisa melebur? Mengalami pelapukan. Oleh karena itu bagaimana Anda dapat mengatakan kepada Tathagata semoga Tathagata tidak melapuk, karena tidak mungkin hal itu terjadi.
And the Buddha goes on to say that that will to live, which the Tathagata has given up and relinquished, he has spoken once and for all. And that the Tathagata should withdraw his words after having said them. This is not possible.
Jadi kemudian Sang Bhagawan menegaskan bahwa beliau telah melepaskan keinginannya, melepaskan abandon, relinquish, abandon itu hampir sama semua bahasa Indonesia, melepaskan, menolak keinginannya untuk hidup. Jadi Tathagata telah mengatakannya hanya sekali saja, dan sebentar lagi parinibbananya akan tiba. Dalam 3 bulan Tathagata akan meninggal.
So this whole episode is it's very interesting and quite curious in many ways. I mean, people often ask, is it really true? I mean, I think it's fairly plausible to say that through developing meditation that you can extend your lifespan. I don't think anybody would really question that. It seems quite reasonable. But to say that you can extend your lifespan to the end of the eon, that's a long, long, long time. That's like millions and millions of years. That seems to be a little bit hard to believe, doesn't it?
Jadi kata Bante, curious itu sebenarnya kayak sedikit aneh gitu ya, bahwa hal ini bisa terjadi. Karena kalau untuk meditasi aja, orang yang sering meditasi memang dapat memperpanjang hidupnya. Tapi kalau bisa memperpanjang hidup sampai akhir dunia itu kan lama banget. Itu agak sedikit aneh, bukan? How long is an eon?
An eon, well, how long from one big bang to the next big bang?
Satu eon tuh mulai dari big bang yang pertama sampai big bang yang berikutnya.
I don't know, maybe 100 million years, something like that. Billions? No. How old is the universe now? I think 15 billion years or something.
Berapa sih usia dunia ini?
We're not even halfway through.
Okay. Dan belum separuhnya kita.
Imagine your superannuation.
Bayangkan pada saat kiamat nanti, superannihilation.
So the commentaries explains it and says what the eon here is it explains it as a full human lifespan of 100 years.
Di komentari mengatakan bahwa satu eon itu adalah satu masa penuh dari masa hidup seorang manusia selama 100 tahun. 100 years?
Yeah. So it shows that even in the traditional interpretations that they kind of struggled to make sense of this particular passage.
Jadi bahkan di tradisi-tradisi yang sebelumnya agak sedikit sulit bagi mereka untuk membuat ini seperti logis.
To me it's also interesting because we've already heard about how the Buddha's getting old.
Buat Bante ini juga menarik karena kita sebenarnya udah tahu bahwa Buddha itu sudah tua.
His body's falling apart.
Dan tubuhnya sudah mulai merasa nggak enak, udah mulai mau bercerai-berai.
What is he going to keep on living and just keep on getting older?
Apakah ia akan tetap hidup walaupun tambah tua?
It's kind of scary, isn't it?
Takut kan?
It's actually one of the Greek myths that talks about that. Is one of the kings who got a wish, got to wish whatever he wanted, and you know that whenever somebody gets to wish for whatever they want in a story, that it's never going to end well.
Jadi Bante ingat ada satu cerita di mana seorang raja selalu menginginkan sesuatu terkabul, dan kita tahu dalam setiap cerita yang seperti itu biasanya keinginannya nggak pernah terkabul.
So he wishes that he should never die.
Jadi raja ini ingin supaya dia tidak pernah mati.
Unfortunately, he forgot to wish to not get old.
Tapi dia lupa untuk meminta bahwa dia tidak jadi tua.
So he just kept on getting older and older and older.
Jadi dia tambah tua, tapi nggak mati-mati, kan tadi keinginannya nggak mati. Cuman dia lupa minta nggak jadi tua.
And never die.
Tapi dia nggak mati-mati, cuman tambah tua terus.
Would that be a blessing?
Apakah itu berkah? I think it's scary.
It's very scary, isn't it, when you start to think about it? Yeah.
Itu menakutkan.
So, what would happen? If you imagine it, what would happen if the Buddha had decided to live on?
Jadi bisa nggak bayangkan kalau pada saat itu Buddha memutuskan untuk tetap hidup?
He would still be alive today.
Dan dia masih hidup sekarang.
I wonder what kind of world that would be.
Dunianya seperti apa nih dunia kita? Bante, somebody wanna ask question? Is it possible to reincarnate in a new body?
Well, for you and I, yes it is, but not for the Buddha. It's one thing that we can do that the Buddha can't do.
Jadi buat Anda sama saya mungkin begitu, tapi buat Buddha enggak. Itu adalah satu-satunya hal yang Buddha enggak bisa lakukan.
Bante, just now the 32 gods was referring to the Tavatimsa.
Oh, that's right. I should have said, yeah, the 33
right?
gods is the Tavatimsa, yeah.
Oh, okay, which is headed by the Lord Sakra, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. And the second one, regarding the Mara, personally, just like you mentioned, it's up to you to interpret. But the way I interpret it seemed to be that Mara is a group of Deva at the upper realm of the world, that they have spiritual power, but they have the power controlling the lower realm of the world that's still confined by the last greed and all those stuff. So it seemed that, because I also look at the passage that first is when the Buddha been tempted by Mara, and Buddha conquered them when Mara summoned all his enemy and attacked him, but with his metta and all those things, and he subdued them, and they will all run away. Even sent his daughter to tempt the Buddha, but it doesn't work. Subsequently, Mara seemed to try his best to do all kind of trick. So he even tried. There's a story that one of the, personally I think it's a group of the Deva, the different group. That one of them they try even to disturb the disciple of the Buddha, but the disciple of Buddha mentioned that, look, I have reached Arhat, but
could you get on to the question?
What happened is I come to conclusion that Mara is a group of Deva, that they were given power to control the being of the lower realm in such a thing. So it's not just something pop up from the mind or something like that, because Buddha is already free from all the defilements. So there's no such thing called some bad thought coming out and talk to you again.
In the Theravadan tradition, it gives a list of 5 kinds of Mara. Mara as the kilesa, the defilements, Mara as the khandhas, Mara as the karma, Mara as death, and Mara as a devaputta, as a heavenly being. So that in different passages, it can be referring to one or other. There are some passages where it's very clearly the Buddha is referring to Mara in a symbolic or psychological sense. And then there are other passages where the story seems to be talking straightforwardly of Mara as a heavenly being of some kind.
Okay. So just the part that seemed that Ananda get influenced by the Mara, is that because he just read the Sotapanna, because he only reached the 3 feathers, the self-belief, doubt?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. What it actually means there when it says Mara is Ananda is being influenced by Mara, whether it means that in a literal sense or whether it just means that he was confused, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, thank you.
Jadi tadi pertanyaannya, sebenarnya bukan pertanyaan ya, tadi ngasih tahu bahwa kalau menurut audiensnya itu tadi, bahwa Mara itu adalah grup dari dewa, satu kelompok dewa-dewa yang mempunyai kekuasaan terhadap alam yang lebih bawah ya. Dan Bante mengatakan bahwa dalam tradisi Theravada ada 5 jenis Mara, 5 kinds, I forgot. Kilesa, satu kematian,
kilesa,
dewa,
kama, kanda, Marana is death, yeah. And dewa, devaputta.
Jadi ada 5, kilesa, kama, kanda, death, kematian, dan sebagai dewa dari alam. Tapi di sini juga kadang-kadang dipakai secara simbolis, sebagai dalam psikologis secara simbolis. Kemudian tadi ditanya juga bahwa Ananda tadi kan di teks ini Ananda tuh sepertinya ketutup oleh Mara. Apakah di situ dimaksudkan karena Ananda itu Sotapanna? Tapi Bante menjawabnya nggak gitu jelas juga, karena kita nggak tahu yang dimaksud dipengaruhi oleh Mara di sini adalah benar-benar secara tulisan tekstual ya, literally, atau cuman untuk simbolisme bahwa Ananda saat itu sedang bingung.
Okay, so I'll just give one more passage before finishing off. The Buddha then gathered all, after renouncing his will to live, made an announcement to the Sangha. He gathered all the bhikkhus together living in Vesali, and he encouraged them bhikkhus to say that they should thoroughly learn, develop and frequently practice those teachings, those dhammas, which he has known through his direct knowledge, which the Buddha has known through his direct knowledge, and that they should continue them, practice them, learn them, and for the long welfare and the happiness of the many folk, for the compassion for the world, for the benefit, well-being and happiness of gods and men.
Jadi di sini Buddha setelah meninggalkan keinginan untuk hidup, Buddha mengumpulkan para bhikkhu yang tinggal di daerah Vesali dan kembali mengingatkan bahwa mereka harus selalu belajar mempraktekkan dhamma yang Buddha telah peroleh melalui pengetahuan langsung demi kebahagiaan dan kesejahteraan banyak makhluk.
And what bhikkhus are these teachings? They are the four foundations of mindfulness, the four right efforts, the four bases of psychic power, iddhipadas, the five faculties, five indriya, five powers, bala, the seven factors of enlightenment, the bojjhangas, and the noble eightfold path, Arya Abhangika Magga.
Dan ajaran apakah tersebut para bhikkhu? Mereka adalah 4 landasan satipatthana, 4 upaya benar, 4 iddhipada, the five faculties is what? Pancakanda?
Five indriyas.
5 indriya. The five powers, Pancabala dan 7 faktor bojjhanga juga 8 jalan tengah.
So most of these we've already met in the Maha Parinibbana Sutta.
Dan kebanyakan dari ini tadi kita sudah melihatnya di Maha Parinibbana Sutta.
And these dhammas, of course, are taught. All of them are taught very, very often in the suttas.
Dan ini adalah dhamma yang sering-sering diajarkan dalam sutta.
And they together as a group, they're known as the Bodhipakya Dhammas.
Dan dalam satu kelompok mereka dikenal sebagai itu tadi yang Bante sebutin.
The 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas.
37 Bodhipakya Dhamma.
You'll find these, as well as being taught in Theravada, they're very frequently taught in Mahayana, where they're called the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva.
Jadi dalam Theravada disebut sebagai 37 apa tadi itu. Terus di Mahayana disebut sebagai 37 faktor bodhisattva.
And so here the Buddha is setting up, or he's establishing this as like the core teaching. He's telling the bhikkhus, this is what is really essential. This is what's really important about what I've been teaching. I want you to remember these. I want you to learn them. I want you to practice them. I want you to keep them going, because this is what is really important about what I've seen and what I've taught.
Jadi pada saat akhir hidup beliau, Sang Buddha ingin memberikan penekanan tentang apa yang menjadi inti ajarannya, apa yang penting, dan ini yang harus selalu dipraktekkan oleh para bhikkhu.
And then the Buddha said to the monks, so because I exhort you, I teach you, all compounded things are subject to vanish. Vaya dhamma sankhara, all conditioned things decay. Strive on with diligence, appamadena sampadeta. The time of the Buddha's parinibbana is near. 3 months from now, the Tathagata will finally pass away.
Dan kemudian Sang Bhagawan mengatakan kepada para bhikkhu, oleh karena itu bhikkhu, aku mengajarkan bahwa semua hal yang terkondisi akan menghilang, akan lenyap. Oleh karena itu berjuanglah dengan sungguh-sungguh. Waktu untuk Tathagata parinibbana telah dekat. 3 bulan setelah ini maka Tathagata akan meninggal.
So the Buddha then spoke some verses summarizing what he just said. He said, his years are now full, the lifespan left is short. Departing, I will leave you, relying on myself alone. Be earnest then, be diligent bhikkhus, be mindful, be pure in your sila. With firm resolve, guard your own mind. Anyone who untiringly pursues the Dhamma and the Vinaya shall go beyond the round of samsara and make an end of suffering.
Nah, setelah mengatakan hal tersebut, Sang Bhagawa kemudian mengatakan kembali bahwa tahun-tahunnya telah matang dan kehidupannya tinggal sedikit lagi, dan beliau akan meninggalkan mereka, hanya bergantung pada diri beliau sendiri. Oleh karena itulah para biku, kalian harus selalu giat, rajin, selalu penuh waspada dan murni dalam sila, dan selalu tidak tergoyahkan, menjaga pikiran. Dan siapapun yang selalu mengejar dhamma, tidak pernah lelah mengejar dhamma, dan disiplin winaya dan mempraktekkan dhamma dan winaya, maka akan mengatasi kelahiran kembali dan mengakhiri penderitaan.
So that theme of the Buddha's passing away, the Buddha's approaching death, which has been an undercurrent in the sutta up to now, in these passages we see has finally come to the fore. The Buddha has told not just Ananda, he's told it to the Sangha. It's public knowledge now. Curiously enough, it's Mara who's the first one who finds out the Buddha's going to die. It's kind of an interesting story. Actually, in the Sanskrit version of that, I should have mentioned in the Sanskrit version, when the Buddha says to Mara that he's going to pass away in 3 months, the text says that happy and delighted Mara vanished there and then. And that's the only time when Mara is happy for what the Buddha says. Every other time Mara is sad and disappointed, yeah? And this only one time he was happy and delighted.
Jadi dalam Maha Parinibbana Sutta dari awal sampai akhir kan kita sudah tahu bahwa Buddha akan meninggal. Cuman di sini kita lihat bahwa ini sudah dinyatakan oleh Sang Buddha sendiri, sehingga ini merupakan pengetahuan umum, semuanya sudah tahu. Dan yang anehnya sebenarnya yang ganjil adalah Mara adalah orang pertama yang mengetahui tentang ini. Dan Bante ingin memberitahukan bahwa di versi Sanskritnya, ketika Mara mendengar hal ini, Mara itu begitu happy sampai dia menghilang, vanish langsung. Biasanya Mara kalau mendengar kata-kata dari Sang Buddha tidak pernah happy, cuman pas kali ini doang Mara mendengar terus dia happy, senang banget.
So that shows how compassionate the Buddha is.
Itu menunjukkan betapa ulas asihnya Sang Buddha. Why compassionate? Because he wants to make Mara happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Buddha punya ulas asih yang luar biasa karena ingin membahagiakan Mara.
Because there's another story about how Mara came to be a Buddhist and to be a follower of Buddhism, but I won't tell that story now.
Dan tentu saja ada cerita lainnya di mana Mara kemudian menjadi seorang beragama Buddha, seorang Buddhis, tapi Bante tidak akan menceritakannya hari ini.
If you're lucky, maybe I'll tell you that tomorrow.
Mungkin Bante akan mengatakannya besok.
Okay, so we'll leave it there for now, and we'll see what happens in the next couple of days as the Buddha is approaching his passing away.
Dan kita akan melihatnya dalam beberapa hari waktu Buddha mendekati saat-saat kematiannya.
And let's finish by paying respects.
Sekarang kita tutup dengan memberikan penghormatan pada Buddha.